Okay, so it turns out I filmed quite a lot of variations of Monarch cast swine, and it's far too many for me to go through and narrate. It will take too much time away from the rest of the project. So instead, we're going to follow the principle of learning by watching. And remember that I said that whole body unified force exists as this quite contradictory thing that, of course, it's expressed as physical forces in the body, but ultimately it's mental. It's something about how the body is interlinked, the consistency and the complex interconnection and variation of the way that the body is knitted together in movement. And it's worth just mentioning again at this point because I keep seeing this thing where people put up diagrams where there's arrows pointing, showing a fist going forwards and the opposite elbows going backwards, and this is described as whole body unified force. If that was whole body unified force, you wouldn't really need to do standing. All athletes have that ability. All athletes understand how to economize and maximize movement. All elite athletes. That's really just oppositional force. So that in itself isn't as simple as just arrows pointing in different directions as we've looked at when we use A and B settings. Oppositional force itself is quite a complex thing. But whole body unified force is about the consistency of movement. So think about the most obvious example, elite level Chen Tai Chi, where you see that kind of whole body consistency in the movement. Well, that's nothing really to do with, or it's separate thing, integrated but separate thing from how whole body unified force is expressed through oppositional force, how it's expressed in movement. And think about what a complex physical and mental process that is, to have hundreds of different points on the body that are all expressing this feeling of a particular kind of bodily consistency, a particular kind of interrelationship, not just of relaxation and tension, but in relation to multiple other parts of the body. And all of those different parts of the body are at different levels of relaxation and tension and coordinating with one another. And then extend that even further into feelings beyond the joints, into the feelings in the skin and the nerve endings, and you end up with an incredibly complex idea. It's simple in terms of once you get that and you can feel it, but physiologically and mechanically that's an incredibly complicated thing. It's absolutely ridiculous to confuse that with some simple model of just oppositional force. This part of my body is going up and this part of my body is going down. If that was all it was, why would you ever need to do standing, or why would you ever need to do silk reeling? Every athlete can do that, and that can only exist in the programming. So if you think of other people's movement, good, correct movement, or broadly speaking correct movement, can be a little bit like a computer virus. If we think of that whole body unified force thing that we're trying to cultivate, it's a little bit like a computer program. Not to create that dichotomy between mind and body, that's where it becomes misleading, but if we think of it like that, then seeing correct movement is a little bit like a computer virus, in that it can just help a little bit to restructure. This is part of the traditional learning method, of course. It can help to restructure your own understanding of movement. So you don't have to overly intellectualize it, of course. Well, you can do what you want with the material. You can look at it and try and work out the contexts and the sets and the things that are trying to be gotten across. Or you can just watch it and see the movement and just try and absorb some of that through visual learning. Or you can do both, it's up to you. I don't always think, very often don't think about exactly what it is that I'm doing. It's usually only when I'm problem solving that I have to stop and think, well, how would I do this? What context am I using? And so on, because it's partly physical learning. So actually you don't need that much theory. It seems like a lot when you're learning it, but you actually don't. There's a certain point where it's partially or significantly physical knowledge anyway. So your body will just naturally do it. It's just when you've got a kind of a problem to solve or something's not quite working, then you can start using this theoretical perspective that we've been looking at. There's no test, and the only answers are whatever you get out of it at this stage, and the answers change moving forward as we've talked about. There's no test other than, well, how you respond when you see the movement that you know is correct, when you see the theory that you know is true, when you see the level that you know is true level. How do you respond to that? That's the only test.